Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, it's Friday. I'm not feeling it too much today, but we got this PPI. So, let's just see what happens, huh? We are getting some interesting action overnight already. I can show you here. Well, actually, no, I want to go to the charts. We're getting a little bit of a run up in the treasuries. So let's take a little bit further back view. Okay, so there was that CPI yesterday. Huge CPI. Man, did that move. And we were able to catch a little bit of up action from here to here, right? But after we left, it really fell apart, and it came back quite a bit in the overnight action. Profit taking, maybe some rethinking the numbers. I'm not sure. But one factor may have been, though, the S&P 500 just took like such a huge puke. Like, at first, they loved the CPI, and then it just fell apart. It completely fell apart. Holy crap. I don't know what, well, there was a lot of rotation, so we saw the Russell outperformed significantly compared to the NASDAQ. So may just be a rotation in the S&P 500, but it may also be like, actually, these numbers are bad. I don't know. Here we got oil. Oil up modestly here today. Gold and silver, they took pretty good jumps off of that. Well, actually, no, interesting. Silver is actually down from yesterday. That's interesting. Copper, well, copper, it was down, but it's kind of clawing things back. And then the yen moved substantially more than would be justified by the CPI. And although we don't have like firm confirmation of this, it seems pretty likely that the Japanese did intervene in this, that they used the news to try and shove it even higher. And we saw some more movement in the overnight. So, excuse me. Something going on in Japanese yen land. Bitcoin still kind of lackluster. But I'm just noticing, like, on this move up here, the Japanese yen is moving up, the treasuries are moving up. So it may be currency related. Also, like, that's kind of the dollar moving down, but now the dollar is recovering and the euro is taking a plunge. So we got some really complicated currency dynamics, and currencies kind of do weird things on weekends. So let's just see where this goes. We've got about a minute and 15 seconds before the PPI news. I don't have any kind of preview or anything for it. We are expecting PPI, headline PPI month over month to be spot 1 and core PPI month over month to be spot 2. So if we got those in line, that would be great. Lower, probably we see the treasuries rally more. I guess I should note, though, or not note, but, remind myself, yeah, we're seeing a rally in the treasuries, but that's just a retracement of the downturn that we saw in the overnight. That was a retracement of the CPI news. So may not actually be significant, but it is a significant amount on our charts, right? So definitely sticks out to me. Yeah, I'm a little tired today. I had kids waking me up in the middle of the night again, and it took me like multiple tries to get the math right. That is a sign that, like, I don't have the hot hand. Okay. Oh, selling. Oh my, core PPI month over month, spot 4 versus spot 2. Oh, this is a problem. This is a problem because this suggests that consumers aren't willing to pay more for products, but the costs for producers are going up still, which means that it's just going to compress company margins. Oh, the S&P 500 is not going to like this. Oh, and yeah, sure enough, we are down a good 20 points already off this. Okay, how to play this on the treasuries? I'm not sure. I am not entirely sure what the flows are going to be here in the treasuries. Like obviously the knee-jerk reaction is a sell, but what are the follow-up flows after that? I'm not sure, especially when it's a Friday. So that combined with I'm not the hot hand today anyways. I should be the hot hand because it did well yesterday, right? But I'm not feeling it. We're going to watch this very carefully, though. We're going to watch this. I'm not going to take a trade, but we're going to watch this very carefully because I want to know what people think about this. This is interesting. This is very interesting. Let's see if we get on Twitter here, if we get any like quick follow-ups. Let's see here. Brannigan Barrett, 14 minutes ago, if we continue to steepen today post PPI, the dollar will confirm a top for the cycle, and tech will continue to see profit taking. Bond traders have seen enough. They see 3 cuts from the Fed starting September. Well, interestingly enough, on this sell that we had, well, okay, so first of all, if we come over to the volume profile, okay, it's not huge yet. I mean, it's nothing compared to the CPI yesterday. But then also, the change in the yield curve is not that significant yet. So they may to some extent just ignore the PPI. Am I reading the economics of this correctly? So I know that like so we got to keep in mind it is one data point. Okay? And like we've seen this before, and it doesn't necessarily mean that this is really like a larger thing that's happening in the economy a lot. Okay? It could just be like the numbers and that month and then that sort of thing together, right? But am I reading like the general takeaway from this from an economic perspective would be that company margins will be compressed as consumers are not paying more, but the companies are.
Block buy.
Okay, so we're getting a pretty decent pullback all the way up to 111 even. I'd say a pretty aggressive push on it as well. Like there was some decent delta on that one. Ooh. Good for fast trading, but I ain't that fast. I wonder if any of you scalpers caught that. Good grief. Well, it might be some time before I get a story on Zero Hedge and read that and see like what some of the economists think. Wait, we're already time to get earnings from JP Morgan. JP Morgan reports record quarterly income after surge in one-time items unexpectedly boosts loan loss revenues. Oh, here's a story that I didn't see from them. Oh, it's a premium article, though, but it's from Simon White, Bloomberg macro strategist. Today's PPI will give a further glimpse of profit margins evolution. These have remained elevated and are set to keep CPI sticky. PPI typically plays second fiddle to CPI, but in the current cycle, we can garner useful information about the state of profit margins, which have been one of the principal drivers of consumer inflation since the pandemic. Margins are off their recent highs, but are still considerably greater than where they were before the pandemic. The NIPA-based economy-wide profit margin measure is at 15% versus 10 to 12% in the years before COVID. The simplest proxy for margins uses the difference between PPI and CPI. This has been rising, which would be consistent with market-based profit margins rising. Primary services is where the BLS tries to estimate the profit margin for retail businesses that do not purchase raw materials directly. Okay, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Supply-driven PCE is calculated by the San Francisco Federal Reserve. All of those components of PCE where unexpected changes in price and changes in quantity move in opposite directions. Thursday CPI showed a Benyon result on the surface, but is not a normal cycle. Profit margins are playing a bigger role, while other underlying fact drivers of inflation are out of sync after a burst of elevated CPI, meaning they are less likely to reach a stable equilibrium than is implicitly assumed by policymakers and the market. And then the PPI came out significantly higher than anticipated. What was it again? It was core PPI spot 4 versus an expected spot 2. So missing it by spot 2% is pretty major. Like, this is a number that usually only misses by 0.1. And then the headline wasn't as bad. It was spot 2 versus spot 1, but still above expectation. Well, so far they have recovered it. Like I said, I'm really unsure what the follow-up flows to this will be. Well, you know what? We never took our notes. Let's take our notes. Okay, so PPI much higher than anticipated. Compressed margins may get confusing flows. It is also end of the week. We have consumer sentiment. We have movement out of NASDAQ and into small caps, let's say. I should just say Russell, but you know, not everybody might know what that means. And we have what was the other thing? Oh yeah, Biden's press conference went poorly. Okay, so let's talk about this one. Man, I'm sitting there watching it. We waiting for the press conference. They said it would start at 5:30 Eastern time, right? That hurt to watch. Oh, no, it didn't hurt. I thought it was hilarious. You know what? I didn't get to watch the press conference. So I saw the thing before that, and then I waited and waited and waited, and it wasn't happening. And I'm like, screw this. And so I just went and did my workout. And, you know, I was like, are they not doing it? Because it had been like an hour. So I kind of thought maybe they weren't doing it anymore. But they did do it just like an hour late, which is not unusual for presidents, by the way, but that's okay. But the part that I did see, oh my gosh, that was probably the funniest thing. Classic Biden, by the way. Classic Biden. Like, he's up there, he's giving the speech, and he's giving a pretty fiery speech. I'm like, oh, okay, this is the Biden that I remember. And then he did the most Biden I remember thing he could possibly do, and he said, okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the president of Ukraine, President Putin. What? Oh my gosh, it was so funny. He called President Zelensky Putin. I was dying. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was the funniest gaffe that Biden has ever made. And that's saying a lot because, like, this is the whole thing. Okay, like, they hid Biden from us during the 2020 election. COVID kind of gave them cover. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's because he is not in good mental health, that he's too old. I don't actually think that that was the case back then. I think that they kept him out of the public eye because his entire political history has been Joe Biden making really, really stupid gaffes and the media covering for it. like that is Joe Biden's political career. Nobody makes more and bigger gaffes than Joe Biden. And that's what we saw in the press conference. Like, he was awake this time. The thing that bothered me about the debate was like the whisper. You know what I mean? Like, he was whispering into the mic the whole time or something, really soft spoken. And then he would like completely lose his train of thought, wander, etc. Well, he did do that a little bit in the press conference, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I don't know. I'm setting a really low bar for him here, and I don't think that he passed. Because then during the press conference, he made 3 major gaffes in the press conference. He called Donald Trump his vice president. He meant to say Kamala Harris, but he referred to Trump as his vice president instead of Kamala Harris. He said, I'm just following my commander-in-chief. He meant to say chief of staff, but oh my gosh. Yeah, do you know that you're actually President Joe? Okay. And what was the third one? Third one was even funnier, if I recall correctly. Oh boy. What was it? I can't remember now, to be honest with you. Oh, actually, you know what? I think that there was in my news squawk. Well, okay. You know, one of the things, though, from the press conference that you probably aren't going to read about, because, like, this is the thing is that, like, his performance wasn't terrible, but he made these gaffes, and, like, all anybody's going to read about is the gaffes. So kind of unfortunate for him, but that's the way that goes in politics, right? But one of the things that he did talk about in there was his mental health. He said that he'd taken 3 mental exams and that he was okay. They were also, the campaign was making the case that, like, Biden had actually, poll numbers had actually improved post debates. Like, they said that his favorability rating increased 20% or something like that. Which is like, what? I don't believe it. I kind of question the methodology of some of these polls, because what they are seeing is just not what I am seeing. What I am seeing is, like, everybody is completely convinced that Joe Biden really shouldn't be president, and the ones that will vote for him are, like, just so adamantly anti-Republican that they're willing to have a vegetable in office because, you know, it's really the team anyways, right? Like, just, man. So to not see that in the polling seems a little suspicious to me. But they were making a good case based on evidence that it would be better for Joe Biden to stay in. He wants to stay in. And the whole thing that we'd been hearing is, well, we'll have the NATO thing, we'll have the press conference, and then we'll see. Like, all of the Democrat lawmakers, I think, agreed in their little meeting that they had on Tuesday that they would wait until after NATO to do things. But what I got overnight was that, let's see here. 3 Biden officials directly involved in his re-election campaign told NBC News that his chances of winning are 0 and that he needs to drop out. While it was also reported that some Biden advisors were discussing how to convince him to step aside, according to the New York Times. Biden is expected to face a deluge of calls from House Democrats urging him to drop out of the presidential race, regardless of his performance at the NATO press conference, according to Axios. It was also reported that dozens of Democratic lawmakers are to call for U.S. President Biden to quit the race in the coming 48 hours. So now it's for, like, all of the big risk events are behind us. Should I call them risk events? I don't know, but like the big events are kind of behind us. Now it's Friday. Friday is when you roll out news items that you don't really want to pick up traction. So yes, I think in the next 48 hours is when you're going to see lawmakers start to call for him to drop out, and we see how this goes. Will he, at that point, it will be abundantly clear that the party wants him to drop out. At that point, will he have the dignity? I really think it comes down to dignity to step aside. Or is he going to try and fight them? Because so far, he's been saying that he's going to fight them. And if he decides to fight them, that could be super interesting. That will be like, I maybe can't win the election, but I'll bring the party down with me. That would be wild. That would be wild. How many clot shots deep is Biden? 4 or 5? I don't know. Well, it's so funny you call it that, man. You know, I honestly have not kept up on the research and the arguments on that one as much as I should. I definitely do recall seeing evidence that, like, COVID shots can create blood clots, and one of them was pulled out, but I haven't been keeping up on that because I never took it, and I don't think I need it. But it kind of triggers me a little bit now, more than it did like 4 years ago, because when we were talking about vaccines, because most of the stuff that I will see on social media, like on TikTok in particular, is people claiming that shots cause autism. You know, they're like, oh, I was playing with the little girl. She was just fine and she was talking, and then she went for her wellness checkup, and the next day she was pretty down, which is pretty common. Like, it hurts and they're a little bit more sluggish that day, but then, you know, their immune system kicks in, takes care of it, and they're fine. I believe that the reason people say that vaccines cause autism is because you tend to get the vaccines around the time when the symptoms of autism really start to show up. So, you know, I think that it's kind of like a, what do you say? Like, you know, they're attributing it to something just because they happen at the same time. But my child was doing weird things from the very beginning. Like, we had a hard time getting him to drink milk from a breast. He was always a little bit more cranky. Like, it wasn't like he was a colicky baby, but like when he did get going, it was very difficult to get him to calm down. So like when people say, oh, well, you shouldn't have given him the vaccine, then he wouldn't be autistic, it kind of pisses me off, right? Because there was signs in the womb, frankly, that there was something wrong with the kid. No, either something is causing it or autism is the default and thus isn't a condition. That doesn't make any sense at all, Uzi. So let me explain to you what we do know about it. So autism is largely genetic in cause. Okay, now just because something is stop skipping comments. Let me see. Funny how the threats to democracy people are willing to have the country run by anyone that isn't a Republican, even if they're dead. So that one is I totally agree with you on. Like, the reason the framers of the Constitution had a president, it was for a reason. It's because there have been historical times in the past where they had like oligarchies or like, you know, groups of people running the country, and that didn't work very well. Because design and decision by committee, it tends to be ineffective because everybody's pursuing their own goals. So you do need to have a single central executive making the final call. And it is a national security risk to have a president that is not mentally capable in that position. Okay. We've gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 4 in a few decades. It's fair to say something is causing it. Okay, so number one, I don't think that autism is as high as 1 in 4. Okay. Number two is that autism was always there and people just ignored it, man. So like, I think the example that always comes to my mind in this is of mice and men. Okay, it's 1 in 36. Okay, that sounds more realistic. Yeah, so what is the name of the character of mice and men characters? It's not Lenny. Lenny is the brother, right? George. Is it George? Yeah. No, George is the little guy and Lenny is the big guy. Yeah. So, in the book of Mice and Men, Lenny clearly has some sort of intellectual disability. And I would argue that it is autism. So, there are countless characters in old media that I believe are autistic. And they never say anything about it. They're just severely intellectually disabled. And like the issue is that a neurotypical person, you know, just kind of assumes that everybody thinks the way that they do. And so even though a neurotypical person is perfectly equipped to be able to understand these kinds of mental issues and why they happen and like all of the nuances of them, they typically don't, simply because they are not interested in studying it. They just go, there's something wrong with that person, and they push it away and they don't want to deal with it, right? Which is really sad because autism, at least the mild forms of autism, are, you know, something that society could absolutely, you know, just make a few small little changes and really help out this relatively large segment of people, right? So I don't think that you could ever point to a rise in the number of autism cases in current times as evidence that there must be an environmental cause, because it was not diagnosed enough back in the day, right? Like back in the day, it was only diagnosed if you were like level 3 autistic. Right. And there was all these kids that they didn't speak until they were 5 or 6. And everybody just thought that was normal. Well, some people are slower. They didn't realize that it was autism. OK, so there's no way for you to know, like, what would be a level of a rise in it that would prove that it's not just them finding it more. Right. So I don't think that that's an effective. OK, but here's the thing. It is genetic. But that does not mean that there is not an environmental component, right? So you can have something where, because of your genetics, you are more sensitive to some sort of environmental toxin, right? Like that's me. I have genetics where my immune system is just like can go really crazy. And so I am prone to develop these issues like the ulcerative colitis that I have. Okay. And, there's a lot of different theories about what causes it, but one of them could be plastics. Oh, Paul's already bringing that up. Plastics. Yeah. So some of it could be that some people, because of their genetic makeup, are more sensitive to plastic. Okay. But with autism in particular, the thing that you have to understand about autism is that in autism, the brain develops differently. Is like really what ends up happening is it just doesn't develop. Those frontal cortex parts of the brain in particular just don't develop the way that they do in other people. And so that means that you can have a pretty wide variety of things that can cause autism. In other words, there can be multiple vectors through which autism is caused. And we know that this is the case with ADHD. So there are cases where a person was normal before, and then they were exposed to some sort of environmental toxin, like a clearly environmental toxin that we know is very damaging to humans and to the brain, and then they developed ADHD from it, right? So it is something that is primarily genetic in nature, but can have environmental causes. So is but I think that there's kind of like this feeling amongst people, and it does seem to be a right-wing sentiment for some reason, that autism shouldn't be that common, and that it's probably because of something in the water or the chemicals or something like that. And I personally don't believe that. Unfortunately, in order to like empirically prove that sort of a thing, I don't think that we have the data, nor it might not be possible to get the kind of data to prove that sort of a thing one way or the other. But just from a logical standpoint, if there's a genetic cause, and there's always going to be a certain amount of autism, and as we have discovered more recently, that there are different levels of it. And some people, they're just a little bit developmentally delayed and they catch up. And whereas other people become nonverbal and require substantial support. So given that it was always kind of out there and ignored, you should expect a relatively large percentage of the population to have it. And you said it was 1 in 36? 1 in 36, so that's like 2% of the population. I actually think that's kind of low, to be honest with you. I actually think that's kind of low. I think that when you add autism and ADHD together, it should be like maybe 10 to 15% of people. So based on my own estimates of what I think it should be based on what I know about genetics, it's probably still being underdiagnosed. Yeah, but how can the rate of increase tell you anything if something was never identified and diagnosed before and now it is? Then yeah, you're going to have a huge rate of increase. So you can't point to the rate of increase as evidence of anything, I don't think. Let's see here. So let me go back. Okay, once you get to a point where half of kids are born are autistic, well, yeah, but it's not 50%. Yeah, well, what we would call level 3 autism was always diagnosed. That's true. But have we seen... I don't think that because they only recently changed the actual designations and so forth, we're not going to have the data to see how much more common is level 3 autism, right? maybe that was a factor behind why they decided to change the criteria and get rid of Asperger's. They got rid of Asperger's because of the guy was a Nazi scientist, but that is another thing that kind of irks me, is like calling the whole spectrum autism. I think kind of hurts the people that have like real level 3 autism. Yes, that's why. Because so it used to be, so right now they have level 1, 2, and 3 autism. And the way that you are categorized is depending on the amount of support that you need. So a person with level 1 autism does not need very much support. These people live on their own. They're weird, but they can support themselves. Okay. When you get to level 2, these are the people that require substantial support. The moderate support, let's say. So these are people that like they might live with their parents most of the time. These are people that like can try to get into the workforce but have a hard time staying in the workforce, let's say. Okay. And then there's the level 3, which are generally they have some barrier in communication and they require substantial support. Okay. So level 3 are the people that, you know, they're never able to live on their own. In fact, in a large portion of these level 3 cases, the home is not even able to support them anymore, and they have to send them to a facility. So my wife, she has a friend at work that their autistic son will wake up in the middle of the night and start banging his head on the wall until he bleeds. And it's like, it doesn't hurt him or who knows, but like, that's a significant problem, especially when it's happening like every day, right? And so that eventually got to the point where they had to put him in a facility. Okay, so that's like level 3. And my kid is diagnosed with level 2, and maybe he's level 3. Like if he never ends up speaking, then he would maybe qualify for level 3, right? Now, level 1 used to be called Asperger's. But the scientist that discovered and coined Asperger's was a Nazi scientist. So that was one of the factors behind why they basically got rid of the term Asperger's. They also felt that it was kind of discriminatory. Like if you got labeled with Asperger's, which I mean, come on, you're going to be discriminated against anyways, right? But I do feel that like, so this system that they've got now is better, maybe. I think that it kind of helps people understand what's going on a little bit better, but it doesn't help those people that are like the level 2, level 3 really get the help that they need. Because now people think that being autistic is just, oh, well, they're a little too logical and don't understand social cues very well, but you know, they're just a little weird. They don't realize that this is like a serious medical condition that, you know, pretty much prevents some people from ever really being able to do a whole lot, you know. And it is like the ones that do get into the workforce, like, oh man. Like, I think that Asher could probably do a job. I don't know if he'll ever speak, but, you know, I could probably teach him to do something, find something that he enjoys, and he could probably do like a really basic job and do okay with it, right? But if something happens, an emotional thing or whatever, like might you need to be out for the day or something, like probably, right? And there are these like level 2 autistic people that get into the workforce and maybe even like engineering jobs, right? And they're on social media and talking about it and like talking about how they're having an autistic burnout. And then everybody starts, you know, saying, oh, well, that's an excuse and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, I mean, That depends on the level of their condition. For that person, level 2 autism, probably. Are there other people that aren't that far along that are kind of making the excuse? Maybe. How many of your children? Just that one. Just that one. So my theory, my wife has thyroid issues. For some reason, she did not have the same problems in pregnancy with our youngest son, Ethan, that she did with Asher, the autistic one. So I suspect that it may have been something to do with her metabolism and so forth at the time that she was carrying him that led to some sort of, brain didn't develop completely correctly. And the issue with brain development is that, like, if it develops incorrectly at one particular stage, then that forever guides the rest of the development of the brain, right? Oh yeah, we have three kids that are from a previous marriage. So the 3 kids that are from a previous marriage, two of them have ADHD issues. One of them, I'm very confident it's ADHD, and I think that we've been able to deal with that pretty well. The other one has very strong signs of ADHD, but the medication has not been working correctly. So I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that one. But their dad, I think, is ADHD, and she just didn't know. So it had nothing to do with me. Had nothing to do with my wife. I do kind of wonder about my wife sometimes, though, man. I don't know. She is just not the same person as when I met her. Like, having kids does things to you. The life situation that we have is different. She's dealing with, like, low testosterone and other kind of chemicals. But I'm also kind of dealing with things where it's like, I say this thing needs to happen, and she just doesn't do it. I'm like, that's kind of ADHD-ish, and I would never have married somebody that I thought was ADHD, right? Because I would be like, oh, you don't want to combine 2 of them together. That's terrible, right? Well, I don't know. But the other theory is that I'm ADHD. I pass the genes on to him, and it just happened to express really, really badly in Asher. And that's why he's autistic. It could be the combination of us. Because the thing with my wife is that she's prone to low metabolism. Like, when she gets her blood pressure taken, the nurses are like, how are you still standing? It's like that. You heard that story about that sniper in Norway or Sweden or wherever it is that like holds the record for most confirmed kills and just, hid in the snow and killed Russians, and it was a woman. And part of the reason why she was so effective as a sniper was because she had an incredibly low metabolism. And yeah, my wife is like that. Apparently ADHD people generally make friends with others with... That's true. But I think it's primarily because their neurotypical friends just reject them. See, like, this is why I find this whole thing about comparing the human mind to a large language model very interesting and a compelling way of looking at brains and thought, because the frontal cortex of your mind is a neural network. It works in the same way that LLMs are. It's just much more advanced and more efficient than an LLM. And what people do basically is they're really good. One of the things that the brain can do that our LLMs can't right now very well is it can switch models. Because your brain can say, I'm in this context, and now I'm in this context. So when you start interacting with people, what your brain is doing is it's starting to build a model of that person and how they think and behave and so forth, so that you can better interact with them, right? And when you start building that model and the model doesn't work, people hate that. People hate that. And so that's why there's kind of this tendency to dislike outsiders, dislike people from other cultures, and dislike people with neurotypical conditions. It's like they can immediately detect that there's something off, and it's like not even conscious. It's just subconsciously this model that they're working together doesn't fit correctly, and they reject the person. Right. And so does that mean that like ADHD people get along better with each other? I actually think that ADHD people can get along well with like practically everyone to some extent. It's just that the ADHD people are the only ones that accept them back. Okay, we're seeing a little bit of downside in the treasury again. I'd say it's still getting pretty active flows here from this, though. Quiet, non-talking, hardworking. Sounds like he needs some construction work. That's what I'm thinking. I saw this one video where this guy he was talking about it actually got turned into a sound for some reason, but it was on TikTok, and he was saying like this is our coworker. He's a really quiet, but he is an amazing welder. So I know he's kind of a little bit weird, but just you know, deal with it because he's a really good welder. That guy is obviously level 2 autistic. Azure is now the interesting thing with language in Azure is that he seems to understand what you're saying really well at this point, but he can't speak. I don't get what the deal is. Like, I can get him to make a sound, but then as soon as I try and turn it into getting him to say a word, he like loses interest. He stops paying attention. It's like it just switches off. It's like you're making connection with him, and then you say, okay, now say, I'm like, go whoa, 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 and he can do it. And then I'm like, okay, now say water, and then it's like he turns off. I don't get it. It's weird. I don't understand why I get that behavior. Because it kind of, we're just constantly playing with us, like maybe he's gonna start talking now, and it doesn't happen, and it just kills me, man. It just kills me. That, and the other thing is that he's obsessed with harassing his brother. Like, if his brother has an iPad, he'll take the iPad from him. If there are blankets around, he will dump all of the blankets on top of him. If they're separate, they tend to play quietly and things are okay, but when they're together, it's just a nightmare. Thank you for being so candid and honest. Well, I'm not trying to be candid and honest. That's just, I have ADHD, so that's just the way that I am. but I was the whole thing that got us into this is another thing of ADHD, is like I'm just talking without a really, like, there's something I want you to get out of it, or it's Friday, we're just kind of chatting, I guess. The thing that started this was somebody said something about vaccines, and I said it really, really bothers me when people claim that autism is caused by the vaccines, because I don't think that the evidence supports that. Like, based on what we know, you would maybe be able to make the case that, okay, some people just have autism, but some people could have autism that could be triggered by a vaccine, right? But even when you try and take it from that perspective, the evidence does not support the idea that the vaccines cause autism. And as far as I can tell, it's just that autistic symptoms aren't really apparent to people until like that 2-year-old time period when they start getting the shots. So that's what got me started on it. And by the way, just because that's not necessarily what causes autism doesn't mean that there are not very significant health issues that are being introduced across the population that are caused by chemicals on our environment, particularly when it comes to plastic. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever to find out that in 100 years, plastics are largely banned. Or that you have to have certain types of plastics, and there's like rules about what you can, like, cannot use plastic for, right? But like to be more specific, like plastic being banned from being around food or water in particular. Okay, now oh man. You know what? I'm not sure why you brought up Lyme disease, but there's some controversy around Lyme disease that is totally deserved, but I don't remember the details about it. I think prescription medicine residue in water supplies is the sleeping giant. And that could be a problem as well. I think so. I would also say though, I think that the American diet in particular is the biggest problem that we face right now. There is not enough fiber in our diets, and there is too much corn. Too much corn syrup. Corn syrup's in frickin' everything, and it's not good for you. It's inflammatory. It's bad for your blood sugar. I think that's the biggest thing facing Americans, and so it's kind of hard to kind of sort out how much these other things might necessarily be messing with people before, like when we get to, okay, so what would be the big society-wide issue? Because like, okay, the increased incidences of autism, it's 4%. I would argue that's about what I think that autism should be, and that it's probably underdiagnosed. But so let's go to something that is more clear. Male testosterone in the developed world is going down. Like overall, it's going down for everyone. For everyone. So this isn't just like, okay, there's a small percentage of the population that is now dealing with problems, yada yada. No, this is like affecting all men. Right? So what's causing that? Well, there's a bunch of different things that could be causing it. Men aren't as active anymore. They have a poor diet. Those are things that would absolutely affect you. Are there chemicals out there that mimic estrogens? That's true too. So how much does that factor into it? Who knows? And then yes, is the birth control drugs and things like that leaching into the water, and that could be affecting you? That could also be a problem. Which is, by the way, like a really difficult issue to solve, because then you go like, oh, okay, so I need like a reverse osmosis system or something like that so that I don't have any of those chemicals in my water. But one, that doesn't necessarily filter them out. And two, reverse osmosis systems have their own litany of issues and are often really gross inside. And there's apparently only a few reverse osmosis systems that are actually any good. Rainwater. There you go. I mean, when it comes to plastic, though, like if we want to study the effect of plastic on the body, you can't find a control. There's nowhere out there. It's not like you can just go to some tribe out in the Amazon and they're not affected by plastic. They are too, because it's like in the water and everything, and they find microplastics in everything. In everything. I have a reverse osmosis system, and you shouldn't drink water from it as it strips all the minerals from it. Oh, yeah, but don't some of those systems, like, intentionally put minerals back into, I don't know. Anyways. I would probably urge my partner to get off of it if I had a girlfriend who was on them. Yeah, I tell you what, man. I really feel like that you're better off avoiding birth control drugs. Like, it's a little startling to me how, like, little people think about this particular thing. Like, birth control drugs completely change a woman. They completely change the way that a woman behaves. It's crazy. And I've seen this because I've had, both of my partners on and off of birth controls, and how they behave, and it's different. They're completely different people. And they're like, everybody should be on this. It's kind of just that really bothers me. Really bothers me. And then on top of that they're really pushing to increase access to birth control drugs. I really don't think that anybody should be taking those without the guidance of a doctor. Let's see, I have a 3-stage filter, sediment, activated carbon block. There's some people in my neighborhood that they sell water systems, and I haven't been able to research into it, but they from what I've seen on the surface, they're like super crazy water filter systems. Like, it's you can specify the pH of the water that you want to come out of them. I don't know how you do that, but let's see here. My wife has been off since 2009. Her sister has been off of for 20 years, and I've known her, and the difference in the personalities and the way they handle their relationships is staggering. Yeah. Been with her 20 years. Her husband's sister has been with her 20. An observable thing. No. And my wife, she has a different issue because she has low testosterone, which I know is kind of like, oh, but she's a woman. But like, low testosterone is in a woman is a problem too, right? Like, testosterone is kind of the thing that gets you to do things, gets you to stand up for yourself, gets you to be motivated. When you don't have that, you're like an unmotivated puddle. It's not good. It's a difficult issue to deal with. Smart to remove the chlorine, heavy metals, and pesticides. Well, the thing that I would like to be removed from my water is the fluoride. That's one of the ones that I in particular really feel like that there are people in corporate America that are just straight up gaslighting us. Like, they're saying, oh, it's perfectly safe and it's totally fine and everything. But we have very clear studies now that show that fluoride affects brain development, and basically people with fluoride water are less intelligent, basically. And then they say things like, oh, well, but it's only so much. But like, the amount that you're putting into the water isn't regulated or controlled at all. It's just like a person in the local municipality that's putting it in. And that, like, the municipalities like make money from it, and the company makes money from it, and there's all of these incentives for them to lie about it. And so really, if we followed the science that we have, nobody should have fluoride in their water. But it's been incredibly difficult for people to get it out of their, like, you have to put on this huge campaign, and it's this huge fight to get fluoride out of your water. It's crazy. That one's crazy. Yeah, it doesn't make sense why they, like, the benefit that you're supposedly getting from it too is like trivial. for them to be putting it in the water. This is just really dumb. Let's just like not put stuff in water. How about that? like I can't believe that anybody in the past 100 years sat and thought, oh, let's fortify our water with something. Like really? Just like normal water's not enough for you guys, huh? Okay. Ugh. I don't know if I should be going on about it because now it's like, oh, it's the conspiracy. On that one, I'm kind of getting a little conspiracy theory-ish, aren't I? I know. One of the things that I've always been trying to get across to you guys with the conspiracy theory thing, so we will talk about conspiracy theories. The thing where this can help you, where this can potentially help your trades and understand the world and things like that. Conspiracy theories are primarily a reaction to a person feeling powerless. Conspiracy theories are primarily a reaction to a person feeling powerless. So like your big alpha guy that's got everything going for him typically does not spend a whole lot of time talking about conspiracy theories. But, you know, it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like not just conspiracy theories, right? There are some cases of these things where we straight up have confirmed the science and like know what the deal is with a certain thing, and you're still not allowed to talk about it. Like that's the case with fluoride. We know the truth about fluoride, and there's still these people gaslighting us about it. Well, maybe not gaslighting, but lying about it. There is the public gaslighting, though, like the cheap fake thing. Oh, that pisses me off so bad. You know what the condition Biden has been, and you are intentionally trying to cause people to question what they're saying, what they're, you know, the truth. They're question their own senses. That's gaslighting. It's gaslighting is not just lying. It's lying that causes a person to like question their own mental state. Be like, well, you always are wrong about these things, or you know when it's not true, and do things to like gaslight. I have a hard time with this one because, you know, people will tell me things and I'm like, no, that's not what happened. Like, I was there. I know what happened. You know, like I told my wife, hey, the kids have been staying up too late and it's a problem. And just like, no, it's just this one time. No, it's not. It's like every night. How can you say that it's just this one time? I just can't even argue. Is that really what you think? Or are you trying to lie to me? I can't even. Because I'm not the person that's good, the kind of person that's gonna go like, oh, okay, maybe I am crazy. Like I'm very confident about my recollection of things and my view of the world. You know, like not my view of the world, but you know, like my ability to see things objectively. So there's kind of this issue that's like a lot of people just see what they want to see, you know? A lot of people will forget all of the bad times. And so when they tell me that, like that is what they genuinely believe, even though it's not what actually happened. And so how do I determine they're gaslighting me or they just have a poor memory or are biased, you know? Ugh. Biden officially we were talking about that. The takeaway from the Biden thing yesterday is that we are anticipating more Democrats to come out in favor of him dropping out, even though the campaign is still trying to very forcefully make the case that his campaign is okay. Most people forget stuff after a week. It's one of these things where, like, I've been tracking stuff. Like I don't have, when there's one particular problem that I don't like at home, I don't like make it a markdown document with every time that it happens. But I can go back. My bed keeps the records, so I can go and point out when you went to bed every day for the last one. Maybe I have to do that. Most people forget things news-wise. I don't know about that one. Like, the people are still, like, very much engaged on the Biden thing, though, right? Yeah, when you like talking about happenings in the world, it's easier to remember them and follow developments, but most people hate talking about that stuff. Yeah. And see, I can't even imagine how those people think or what it's, because I've never been that person, right? Like, even as a little kid. Even as a little kid in elementary school, I was watching the Today Show every morning and knew what was going on. I remember that day when what's his bucket was the leading guy for the Democrat nomination, and you did this scream, and it was like so bad, and that like decimated his campaign, and then he was no longer the front runner. And that was like junior high, I think. Maybe it was elementary. If you put me in a room with a Disney file or a TV person and it's like drilling my skull with a red hot soldering iron, it's literally torment for me. Did you watch that the Star Wars themed hotel, and this girl on YouTube made like a 4-hour review of it? The thing that was so interesting to me about that video and kept me watching through the whole thing was that she was the target audience, man. This was one of those people that loves Disney, loves like role-playing experiences sort of a thing, and is willing to shell out any amount of money for every new thing that comes along. So much so that they've started a YouTube channel about it. And they had lost even her. And even she had come to the conclusion that they are just squeezing us for money, and it's disgusting. That was what was so interesting about that documentary. Funnily enough, I'm friends with the dude whose company was contracted to do commercial wallpaper for that hotel. Wow, really? That's funny. Oh, man. Kind of, I don't want to think about Star Wars. So, Corridor Crew, it's this YouTube channel that is all about visual effects. And so Corridor Crew did a video this week about the effects in Star Wars and how great they were, especially for their time, and everything that they had to go through to make those shots and everything. And it's kind of sad to me to watch it, because it's kind of sad to me what they've done to the Star Wars franchise. It's kind of sad to me that we don't make movies like that anymore, and that they don't put that same kind of care into movies because they can just do everything with computers. Okay, Lewis, do you take any notice of market internals like Vald, Tick, Ad, etc.? So I had that data for a time, and when we did that, we did a lot of backtesting with it. I wish it was like on an older machine, so I don't have those results. I would still have those models, but then I'd have to go and get like the data again and run them again, and probably do a little bit of like massaging and everything to work it for maybe some of the new stuff that we've learned. But Basically what I found was that there was a real edge in Tick in particular. There was a real edge in Tick. Like, you take Tick and put a moving average on it, and then when the moving average switched from rising to falling, you could take trades. And there was an advantage in it, but that advantage had basically already been arbitraged out of the market. So it looked to me like there was like a robots that were actively trading that. So I think that suggests to me that if you're programming and you're searching, that those indexes might be something that you could add into your models that might help. But you know, there's probably more fertile ground in areas that like people aren't really looking. Probably in like more of the machine learning world. But I hate Star Wars because Star Wars is something I should like. I don't know if that's true though. I don't really think that Star Wars is something that Uzi should like. It would only be something that Uzi should like because it's sci-fi. But it's not actually sci-fi, it's space opera. It is a soap opera drama kind of show in space. It's not actually sci-fi. Star Trek is sci-fi. To me, sci-fi is like, we're gonna explore these interesting ideas about how certain technologies could change society or certain ethical questions. That's Star Trek. Star Trek is sci-fi. Star Wars doesn't deal with any of that. There are technologies in there, but the technologies are just like there to move the plot along for world building. So Star Wars is really supposed to be more of a like archetypal legend type of story. Like it's like the Odyssey for modern audiences is what Star Wars is. And that does not seem to me to be kind of the sort of thing that Uzi would be like particularly attracted to. Somebody might say that he should be because it's in space, but it's not actually. Yeah. But even more so than that, the other thing that you have to understand about Star Wars is that Star Wars was a work of art created by an autistic man for autistic men. It really was. If you want to fix Star Wars, put the autism back into Star Wars. What does that mean? That means that like you have to, if you're going to write something that is Star Wars, you have to have read like all of the Star Wars stuff out there and know everything about all of the other movies. And then you and your geek friends can write a script and make sure that it is completely in line with all of the previous canon and everything before you can do anything. Like, that's the way that it should be. This whole thing of like, we're just going to take regular writers from Hollywood. These are all like the popular kids at school, something like that. And then they're going to make Star Wars and it's going to work is just the like dumbest thing in the world to me. In order for Star Wars to work, it has to be autistic, guys. It was an autistic work. Everything down to the VFX is shit that only people that were super obsessed with this stuff would have ever figured out. And George Lucas is autistic, man. Nobody ever talks about this, but he is without question in my mind level 1 autism. He doesn't write good dialogue. Why? Because he's autistic. It's so funny to me. Yeah, if you're gonna write Star Wars, at least like it first. Yeah, it's wild to me how they've got these writers and actors that like don't even know anything about it. It's nuts. It's like it's not hard to watch the 6 movies. Like, come on. I'm not a hyper fan of Star Wars. The only reason I'm kind of in this weird spot because, well, so first of all, my family really liked Star Wars because that was like the first movie that my parents, that was their first date, was Star Wars. Okay. And then when I was in school, you know, you always had to read a book. You know, they'd have like 20 minutes reading time or whatever. And so they just gave me Star Wars books. I didn't like pick them out or whatever. This is like, they gave me a Star Wars book. I'm like, okay, I read one. I guess I should continue reading the series now, right? So I read like all of the X-Wing books. And it wasn't like I was like, oh, these are the best books and I'm going to read them and I'm going to know where. No. But that ends up putting me in this cohort of people that in the 90s, and, you know, basically before the prequels came along. Well, what the fuck? Hold on a second. So my phone, number one, is going off. And then so my wife must have tried to use Spotify and didn't do something right. What's with that? That's so weird. Spotify, what are you doing? Okay, where's my playlist here? Oh my gosh. And now it's playing on my phone, but not over here. This computer. There we go. That's bizarre. Oh, you know what probably happened was, yeah. I see what happened. My wife is getting in the car and my phone is automatically connecting to the car, and then it switches my Spotify over to playing off of my phone. So for that, if that's the case, why was it playing out of the speaker of my phone? So no, that doesn't explain it either. No, this computer. Good grief. Ugh. Hey, Paul, they did the stories they wanted to with the characters instead of the stories of the characters. Yeah, well, but you know what? With Marvel, honestly, with Marvel, it was when they started, they had this big grand plan to do the whole Thanos arc, and then they finished the Thanos arc and they didn't know what to do with it, and then other people came in and just kind of took it over and did stupid shit with it. I feel like that's as simple as that one is, but all of this stuff kind of makes me really interested in, like, what are the signs and what are the things that kind of lead to these sort of organizational diseases of sorts, right? Like, it's just insane to me how badly the Star Wars franchise has been handled. Like, Disney did not make their money back on that thing at all. They're talking about making new movies in 2027 or something like that, but it's just like, how do you mismanage something so badly? And then the person that's in charge of it all is still in charge. How does that happen? Or like this whole thing with Joe Biden. Like, they had the press conference yesterday. Press conference wasn't that bad, and he made gaffes that are going to look really bad for him in the press, but that's like classic Biden. That's the way he always was, even before he had dementia, okay? So it's weird to me when I look at this. So over the past year, before the debate and everything, like, everything was going the wrong way for Biden. Like, every single issue just turned out poorly for him. And that's where things got to before this debate, where Trump was, likely to win based on battleground state polls. And now after this debate, like, there's no chance that he's going to win. And so you kind of sit and go, like, what's going on there? Is it just because the executive is not all there? Or was there some, because I kind of feel like, okay, yesterday, it seems to me like Biden is just the same dunce he always was. So has it always been him? Or is there some deeper organizational rot out there? Or like Kamala Harris, like every campaign that has gone poorly for Kamala Harris, like staffers hate her. What the hell is going on there? Right? What is it that these people are doing that are causing them so much trouble as leaders or as organizations? And can we predict when this is going to happen? I guess in the case of Star Wars, we could have predicted that Star Wars would always go badly because it's just the way that the property is. It's like, I really never thought that anybody other than George Lucas would be able to come in and do it successfully. So whatever. Happens in all aspects of life. People without merit get in high places because there's their charisma or something. As annoying as it is, just don't be the person they rely on. Take a poll for Thanos. Oh man. They really did a good job with that character in those two movies, didn't they? Because you've got somebody that, people can legitimately think was right. He's not, but like that's the whole purpose, is you create somebody that is sympathetic so that you can kind of see the flaws in yourself. Right? So we are into the S&P 500, but it's not moving a whole lot. Kind of seems like there was the knee jerk on PPI, market recovered it, and now we're just going to go sideways for the rest of the session. That's kind of seemed, yeah. That wasn't Thanos's canon motivation, though. That's true. In the comic books, he wanted to kill everybody because he had a crush on some representation, some character that was like a physical manifestation of death, and was a sexy character apparently, and he wanted to kill everybody to impress Mistress Death. But there's also one of those sorts of things where like there's different run-throughs of the same story in the comics, and even within the same comic, they might change things. So, his motivations were kind of inconsistent and changed as well. So I like what they did with the character in the movies, for sure. Like, I really can't think of a character that has so many, like, meme quotes, Oh, Deadpool also loved death, so in the comics, Thanos cursed Deadpool with immortality so that he may never be with Lady Death? Really? I haven't earned that one. I still have the entire Infinity series in physical form. His motivations didn't really... Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. By the way, did you watch the new X-Men 97 series? Because I was so into that. I was so into that. I wanted to see Thanos fight Eternity on the big screen. Oh man, now you're getting beyond me. I kind of like, my only foray into the Marvel world had been watching the X-Men cartoon as a kid. And I always kind of thought that the Marvel storylines were kind of like cheesy and overly dramatic and stuff. I knew a lot more about the DC line of stuff. But for some reason, I tell you, this just drives me crazy. Like, the DC cartoons are amazing, and they're still amazing. Like, they still make DC cartoons. They're like movies, But I still like them. I still think they're good. They're not like amazing works of art, but I still think they're good. And I just don't understand why when Warner Brothers was doing the DC universe and everything, that they didn't go and look at the cartoons and be like, let's just do that. Let's take the guy that's been making all of these things, make sure that he's kind of one of the decision makers, or that he's significantly involved, because he seems to understand this thing pretty well and doing it pretty well. And the way that they decided to adapt those comics to TV was pretty effective, so we can take those and just kind of modify them a little bit for the big screen and all of this sort of a thing. And they didn't do any of that. And they made something else that's just completely different, and I don't get what they were doing. But I don't know. Warner Brothers, here again, it seems to me, okay, like they bought Discovery, and then they had this huge merger, and when they had this huge merger, they basically decided like, oh, everything in our company is going badly, and we have to cancel so that you can get the tax write-offs. Okay, I get it. But then every decision after that has been like, what the heck are you doing? It's not HBO Max anymore, it's just Max. But then actually we do want to bring the HBO brand back, and it's just like, what is going on at Warner Brothers, man? These people, is the management just that bad? And then again, what is it about the management that makes them so bad about this? And can you see this and predict this happening? Because I see it a lot in society, and I don't understand what's going on. I don't have enough insight into the companies to know what's going on, and I don't have enough insight about what makes good leadership to understand what's going on, and it's just confusing to me because there's so many things out there that seem to be failing miserably right now that shouldn't be. They made a Rudy Superman. Here's another thing. Zack Snyder, man, what the heck is with Zack Snyder? Have you watched Zack Snyder's new thing on Netflix? What was it called? Blood Moon or something like that. Oh man, it was so bad. I was like thinking back on it, it was bad. Why was it so bad? Like, here again, Zack Snyder had some good work. I mean, the 100 or whatever it's called, that's great. That's great classic movie cinema. And then everything after that, disaster. What's with that? Or even worse, you know who the king of this is? You know who the king of this is? Oh man. M. Night Shyamalan. What the heck was with that guy? He made all of these great movies, Unbreakable, The Sixth Sense. And then he made stuff like the Avatar remake. What? How did such a great filmmaker become such a terrible filmmaker? What went wrong there? I don't understand. Was he never actually that good, and there was like somebody else underneath of him that was actually doing all of the good work and left, and then, I don't get it. You see, what's really going on in my mind here is like, okay, I'm running a stream, I'm running a community, I'm running a business. I want all of those things to grow. It's not like the primary concern, because with all of those, the top thing is the community and getting better at trading. Okay. And then, popularity is like a close fifth or something like that. Okay. But we do grow and we continue to grow. And I don't know if we'll ever be super viral, but I do think that at the very least, we'll continue to grow into places that more will be asked of me. And a lot of time, founders and so forth end up being like the biggest impediment, right? Like, it's extremely common in startups for the founder to be ousted from the startup. Like, the founder gets them to a certain level, and then there's a certain point at which the defects of the founder are too big, and the investors kick him out, essentially. And so, like, to avoid that, you either, one, have to have a really good structure that makes it so they can't kick you out, which is one thing that you can do. But I think in a lot of these instances, the investors are wise to kick you out. So then the next thing is you have to be aware enough of yourself and aware of the leadership and everything to know when you're the one that's holding things back and know how to step back. And how do you know what that is, and what do you do with that? Have I already well past that point and I just never realized it? Like, it's just and I see it everywhere and I don't know what's going on. There's got to be a book that I can read. Is it as simple as a book? Probably not. Because if it was as simple as a book, it wouldn't be happening so much, would it? Oh, man. But I digress. I would love to see the DC cartoons just turned into a... Like, go and look at the DC Justice League. Take one of those, turn it into a movie. That simple. It's that simple, guys. And then you don't have to have... It would be a different... I guess it would be a different model. Because it wouldn't be, okay, there's this huge event and we're slowly working towards that. Instead, it is we create an ensemble cast and we put them on an adventure. And guess what? We have like 32 other adventures. So you could make like 32 movies. Each one of them enjoyable. They'd be more like Bond movies then, right? Than the MCU. Whatever. So going back to Lewis's comment about, some people, they'll get into high places maybe because of charisma or something. So here's the problem that I see. Let's take it back to investing, okay? I give you $100,000 and you have to invest that $100,000 into stocks. You cannot do index funding. You have to invest it into 10 individual stocks of your choosing. Any stock, 10 stocks. Which ones do you pick? Okay, well, so I'm just setting up the classic mutual fund manager conundrum. Like, there's a lot of good stocks out there, guys. There's a lot of stocks that can make you money. Which is the one that's going to be the next NVIDIA? Hard to say. What's it going to be like in 10 years? There's a lot in the future that we don't know. And how do you pick those? There's too many choices. This is the major issue that we face in our society that I don't think that we really have very good answers to yet. Is that we live in a world of abundance. It's so much abundance that it is incredibly difficult for us to filter and make good choices amongst that variety of choices. And it often leads to collapse and failure. So if you're coming in and you're looking at, okay, I want to pick somebody to direct my movie or whatever it is, there's a lot of different people to pick. And how do you decide who to pick? Right? So just like with stocks. Okay, well, what I could do is I could say, I want them to have certain metrics, right? They need to have a certain beta and a PEG ratio and all of these sorts of things. Or I want them to have at least this much projected growth or whatever the deal is, right? Singles 25K order on TLT sold. That's interesting. We are getting the kind of the hole before the inflation expectations. So that's kind of weird to happen in that spot. You looked into open interest levels on options and its correlation to indices. So I have a video about options gamma, and that would be the video I would look at on that stuff. Calculating gamma levels can show you some pretty key places. Okay, so sentiment was lower than forecast, and both the 1 and 5 year, well, 5-year inflation expectations slightly below the expectation. So we saw a little bit of a jump. I don't know if it's going to be too big, but it was positive for treasuries, and it looks like the equities are rallying off it as well. Okay, so anyways, if I'm picking stocks, I could pick like certain metrics, right? But even amongst those metrics, I might still have a ton of really good stocks to pick. And so which ones do I pick? I pick the ones that I identify with, you know, this sort of a thing. Okay, well, like it's the same thing in selecting people for a job. Like people say, yes, you should pick the most qualified person for the job. Well, guess what? There's like 1,000 most qualified people for the job. How do you determine which of those 1,000 is actually the most qualified? You actually can't, because there's probably 100 of those that are equally qualified for it. And then what happens is we pick one of those people, and then we find out that they even with all of that filtering and all of those choices to pick from, we still end up making the wrong choice a lot of the time, because the metrics that we're relying on just aren't very good at doing it, right? Do you have one PC powering all of your monitors? Yes, and I only have 3 monitors. And the monitors are plugged into the UPS. So, actually one of them is not. But I hope soon to be able to get a UPS. Fix that. Kind of one of those things on the list. I could do it now, but I don't really want to. UPSs are way overpriced, dude. I tell you what, the price of some things, I don't know why this brought this to my mind, ADHD moment, but I've gotten into binoculars because I was at the store at the Cal Ranch store, and they had these Vortex binoculars that were really for kids. They were only like $70, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I tried them, and I thought that was great, even though they're super tiny ones. So I want big boy binoculars now, right? Well, they're not super expensive. You can get some that are like $1,500. Oh my gosh. Maybe if you did hunting a lot, that it would be worth doing that, right? Okay, but there are some that are like $300, $500. Okay, cool. But the interesting thing about Vortex is that they have an unconditional warranty. That means if the device is broken, you send it in, they will fix it. No questions asked. The glass is broken, doesn't matter. And I've had people tell me stories that they or a friend that they know literally broke the glass in their scope or whatever the deal is, and they still replace it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, right? You would think that something like that should retain its value, but actually it does not. And I went on to my local classifieds, and like, there were some of these things that are normally like $300 to $500. It's selling for like $100, $70 in some instances. Did they not know that they have an unconditional warranty? Maybe there's an arbitrage opportunity here, right? I buy the binoculars, I turn around and resell them for a much higher price, and if there's something wrong with them, I just send them in and get them back. No questions asked, right? Apparently, binoculars are something that you can go and pick up secondhand, extremely discounted. But UPSs, no. UPSs, no. Actually, I haven't searched for those. Let's look. So if I just search for UPS, it pulls up weird stuff. So let's search for APC 500. And it needs to be a rack mount, which I don't see. Well, here's a rack mount. Okay, that might be what we need. In great working condition. Hey. I don't like the first picture that they give me though. Show me the front of it. Show me the front of it. $600. Right? Like for these prices, $1,500. I could just buy it off of Amazon for the same price. It seems to me that like one of the key things is how heavy it is. If it's an item that's really heavy, then it's difficult to get a discounted price in the secondary market for some reason. Because it's like it costs too much to ship or something. Get a Victron inverter / chart. Wait, why would you do that? Nah, I was just gonna get. So what are these ones? Only one photo. Can be rack mounted, but probably doesn't have the things. Might have to buy those separately. It's not showing me the front of it. Not. Oh wait, this one has 2 photos. Okay, this one looks like it has 6 in the back. I think I need 2 units like this. So I could get 2 of these units for $100, $200. I could do that. That might work. That might work. I think I need 2 units because I don't have enough plugs. I added some networking equipment and I need more plugs for those. So. What does the rack do? Nothing other than that I have everything in a rack now. So it would keep things clean looking, I guess. I don't know. My conclusion from the rack mount is that there could be some very serious advantages to a rack for a consumer, but because they are not the primary audience for it, you don't really get a whole lot of benefit, and the increased cost for rack mount stuff is just so exorbitant that it's really not worth it. It's cool, so if you want to waste money, you can do it, but I think that and my setup is way more organized because of me putting it into a rack. Otherwise, it would be a real mess back there. But I don't think that the cost was worth that. Well, it's cheaper and it will run. You're going to have to give me better than that. Because, well, that's not cheaper than me buying 2 secondhand UPS units. What does the Victron inverter charger do? So I've definitely seen these more complicated UPS setups, but I don't understand how they work or what the advantages are to them. It seems to me that when you get into power, that there's not very good information or resources online about it. So I ran into this issue again, also with 3-phase power. Was looking at like, okay, so if you want to have 3-phase power tools, and I understand why 3-phase is more efficient and the advantages and everything, but how do you get it to work? What do you have to install and everything to do it? And it's like only electricians install those things and they know exactly what you need, and so there's like nothing online about it. Still at 04 half. Was looking at this. I haven't reset it over here. But yeah, I should check while we're at it. Is like any Rolex watches out there? Okay. Oh no, I thought that said 1175. No, 11,750. Okay. Well, isn't an Air King? Oh, okay, 4,000. Isn't even 4,000 for an Air King a little cheap? Hmm. I just like to look at things on the local market and see if there's arbitrage opportunities. Okay, Victron inverts the DC from the battery to AC. It will connect to the grid and keep the battery charged. If the grid fails, it will take over with power from the battery. Okay. But how is that different from a single rack mount UPS battery that just plugs directly into the AC? If you have a 10 amp fuse and a 10 amp Victron, you can get 20 amps at the wall. Okay. Except for what would you use that needs 20 amps? Maybe if you just had a lot of PC equipment. I don't know. That treasury sure looks like they want to go a little bit higher, but they're being a little bit shy about it. Most voters want Biden to step down. Oldest voters' least concern. One, you can expand it, connect 3 of them together and get 3-phase power. 2, you can set it to charge during the day at cheap rates and use the battery after sundown. See, that sounds way too complicated for me, Julian. I don't think I'm to that stage yet. I don't think I'm to that stage yet. It sounds interesting. I don't think I'm to this stage. Like, the part of my problem here is that I have a UPS that works okay. I mostly just want more plugs and it be in the rack. And like when I search for it, it's like it's $1,000, and I'm like, that's not worth $1,000 to me. $200, sure, let's do it. Let's do it. No, okay, Octavius is taking the run here, probably because of the break of the the value area. How big is the rack? It's only up to here. I could turn the camera and you could look at it, but there's not a whole lot to see. I dream that someday racks will become a thing in the consumer hardware segment, and then we'll get cooler consumer stuff. Like what I would like to have is they make these cases from Sliger. I think those are probably the best rack mount cases that you can get for traditional PC right now. But what I would like is a rack mount from Sliger that has a lot of lights on the front of it. You know what I mean? Like just the whole thing is little LED lights, and they all blink randomly based on different things that are going on in the system. That's what I really want, is I want more lights on my rack. You know, I have a switch now. I have a Ubiquity switch that is like way bigger than I need. You know what? I will show you. I'll show you, okay? Let's see here. I'll move this over here a little bit so I can speak better. Okay. So I don't know. You can't see it. Oh no, you can see it perfectly fine. So I've got on the very bottom there. That's where the UPS is sitting inside of the rack, but not connected to the rack. And then I got 2 Sliger cases, a Ubiquity switch. You can see I'm only using like 4 of the ports or something right now. And a little brush strip to do the cable management, and then I've got a what do we call these? Drawer, a shelf, I guess, for the laptop, and then I put a piece of wood on the top, and I kind of put all of my camera stuff up here, where the kids can't get to it. Oh, and my stash of Kleenexes, because if Asher gets into the Kleenexes, he throws them everywhere. So yeah, it's not a full size rack, I guess, if that's if that should answer the question. And yeah, you can't ever see that side of it because when we film, we're the other direction. I'm curious to see when I ever get around to writing the script for our next video. Oh, I need to turn this back around. Light back around. There we go. This one. There we go. When we make the new video, if the little sand drawing thing shows up in the video at all or not. And how things look with the desk. Will you be able to see the desk very well? Will that look nice? Be interesting. Do you remember Strats? I think so. That does sound familiar. It's a no-brainer if you have dynamic rates in the Netherlands. I can get power at about 1/5 the rate during the day compared to at night. Oh, okay, I get you. I don't know. You know, like if I was gonna be like, so here's another one of my issues is that like if I'm gonna spend $1,000 on something like that, I'm gonna spend $1,000 on cooling. Like I'm gonna get a mini split and put it in this room because this room is hotter than everywhere else, and it's like right next to the thermostat, and it's like messing up the heating and cooling of the rest of the house. And I will get like sweaty during the stream because I have the door closed, and then I will smell all day. And so then I open the door and put a fan to blow air into it, but then my sons can climb over the little gate that I put in the door to keep them out. They're old enough to climb over it, so then they come into my office and try and ruin everything. So like getting a mini split would be nice, or getting a mini split for the garage. But before I do that in the garage, I need to insulate the door, the garage door, because it's pretty good insulation now. But once that sun gets over there, the heat just radiates through the door, through the garage door. So if I was going to spend $1,000 on something, I would spend it on cooling infrastructure, not the UPS. But if I can get a used UPS for like $200, like the ones that I saw listed there, they didn't have very good pictures, but maybe sometimes that can be good for you. You're buying locally, right? Is it because I think it's because of the tech radiating heat? Yes. I mean, it's also in the corner, so that might be another thing. But I think it's mostly because of the computer and me being in the room. And the lights. The thing that will heat it up the most is the overhead lights. I have overhead lights that are like a track light that I can, each individual light I can point to a different place. and they're LED lights and everything, but if I turn them up all the way, they generate heat and it will make the room hot. Also, the window. Window isn't very well insulated. Yeah. Very, very often I kind of think that. So like, well, let me finish the thought first and then I go into the story. I very often think about, I wish that my house was set up a little bit differently to fit my needs better because of my autistic son. Like, one of the things that I remember that I really, really regret is, okay, when they're building the house, do you want a door to the basement or do you just want it to be open? Now I'm like, no, I hate that because then you have to open it and it's annoying. You're going up and down and all the time and all this sort of stuff, right? Well, now I really wish that I had it because I cannot have my toddlers go up and down those stairs by themselves. So then we had to like install little gates on all of them. And that was a pain in the butt, right? And when I'm having a problem with my kids, it's very often the case of I just have to set things up better. Like, we have a sectional couch and there's a middle part of the couch. And we bought this couch because he was like flipping furniture over and everything. And so we got this one, it's a really heavy couch and it's really sturdy hardware in it so that they don't hurt themselves or hurt the couch. They're met when they're playing around with the couch, right? But the mid part of the sectional is light enough that he can throw over. And he insists on doing it. He will throw it over every time. Every time. It's so annoying. So I moved the cedar chest to behind it so that he couldn't do that anymore. I'm missing a call. Hold on here. Hold on. I'll be right back. I'm going to check on something, all right? Anyways, so that whole story was kind of wish a new house, but I think it will be a long time before it would ever be possible to get into a different house. Interest rates coming down, that would certainly help. Giant orders hitting ES. I don't have a tape up for ES. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have a tape up. My wife is working today, so I realizing that I need to be watching them. Looks like they'll be okay until the stream is done. 600 contract. Well, I don't know if 600 contracts is that big of a deal, to be honest with you. Okay, what do I do if I don't have level 2 data doing a funded evaluation and they charge $50 for level 2 data, which is insane. Whoa, what? That is kind of insane. I don't know, man. I personally would have a really hard time trading without being able to see the depth of market. But I think that if you're using informational inefficiencies, you can still take the trades. Your executions might not be quite as nice. Right. And if you're doing like momentum, then you don't have to worry about those sorts of things. Where do I learn trading informational inefficiencies? Here. Well, so if you haven't watched my order flow video series, even if you don't have order flow or you're not going to use it, I would still watch it because it gives you some insight into why the market behaves the way that it does and what the challenge really is in day trading. And that can help you understand where to go with like developing your own strategies. Right. The gist of it though, as I'll tell you here, is that basically the impact of orders is really, really strong. And so the only thing on an intraday basis that really matters is what is the next set of orders going to be. And if a large institution is executing, like that's it. They're going to move the market. And the only thing that is going to be predictive is the things that are predictive at explaining what that institution is going to do, which usually involves knowing something about that institution. So, you know, could you have predicted yesterday that because of the lowering interest rates that people would cycle out of the Magnificent Seven stocks and into micro caps? You totally could have. I didn't. I was kind of like, hey, I think that ES could still make another run at the highs. That was dead wrong, but that's why I don't trade ES, right? But somebody that's really into that stuff might have been able to think about the how funds might reallocate, right? Oh my gosh, I just got reminded. I was browsing around a little bit. So I've been getting a lot of stuff about running. Do you guys get stuff on social media about running? You know, like going outside and jogging? So like, I never search for this stuff. All of a sudden it's showing it to me. Like, what's with that? See, Manmeet says yes, more recently. I've been for the longest time. What is going on with this? This is so bizarre. Why would it be showing me running content I have no interest in running? It's just like the day trading thing. The algorithms are picking up on it and are pushing it to you. Either as part of, you know, like somebody's put their thumb on the scale and told the algorithm to push it, or probably more likely just that they're saying, oh, other people like you are interested in running, so maybe you'll be interested in running as well, and so it will show it to you, right? Well, what has happened is that I don't know how long it's been since they've kind of known these things, but they've kind of looked at the way that you train for running, and they have different zones based on how aggressive your running is. The first zone is like you should be able to still hold a conversation while doing it. And then the second zone is where you're running hard enough that you're starting to get anaerobic activity, like your side's going to hurt a little bit, sort of a thing. And then the third level is going to be like you're just running your hardest at all-out sprint. And what they have basically determined from the research is that it's best for like 80% of your training to be in zone 1. And so what this has led to is, if you're in zone 1, you're supposed to be able to speak. So what's happening is, post-pandemic, people are joining running clubs. You go out running in the morning and you chat with the other people in your running group and you all run together. And this is like a new trend that's going around, and that's why social media is pushing more running content to us, I think. That kind of interesting. Kind of actually makes me go, oh, okay, I wouldn't mind running around and like talking to people, except for that I hate running. So I don't know. I'd have to get a lot better at running to do that. But with the elbow thing going on, I'm starting to question my life, you know, like it's just not quite the same when I really can't do the. It actually hurt more than it normally would. Can you see my kind of the difference in between my two elbows? This one is like really swollen compared to this one. You can kind of see. Let's be real, running groups are just dating group meetups? Maybe. How did you injure your elbow? I don't remember. I remember when I was in high school hurting myself, but I don't think that was my elbow. I think that was more my finger, like fractured my finger, not like a clear break, but a sprain. I also remember like being in a karate dojo and breaking a board and them like instructing it wrong or something, or using a wrong piece of wood and it not breaking the first time. But I think that was with this elbow and not this elbow. I also can remember many times just like knee-jerk reaction and jumping, but basically I went and to go and get an x-ray of it, and there was a huge bone spur coming off of my elbow. Yeah. There's a huge bone spur in my elbow. So I don't know what caused it. And it may just be like continued small traumas over time can cause a bone spur to grow. But to me, it really looks like that I actually chipped a large part of my elbow. And because I never had it gone and looked at, it should have been in a cast or whatever. And then it just grew back in as a bone spur, is what it looks like to me. So anyways, maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was lifting and I was just lifting really hard. And I think that I overextended my elbow when I did that. And when I did that, like all of the ligaments in my elbow just started getting inflamed. And so my tricep tendon in particular is really inflamed for some reason. And it hurting will go away. But if I like put my head above my arm above my head and, you know, like do that, oh man, you can really see how much is sticking out compared to this one. Yeah. Anyways, doing this overhead tricep extensions is what hurts it. So I'm kind of doing that a little bit every day because I'm told that you have to get blood flow into the tendon. But it may just be that the tendon is fine and that it's just inflamed because it's rubbing against the bone spur. I don't know. So it's kind of like it hurts and I can't really do overhead work even though everything kind of says to me that like it should be fine. And I'm starting to wonder, like, okay, so when you have like these tendinitis, like it takes like 6 weeks to heal or something like that. And sometimes it never heals because you continue to traumatize it. So I'm avoiding doing anything. I don't do jerks. I still do snatches because I can do snatches without it really hurting it too much. But I can't do jerks. That hurts too much. And hopefully after 6 to 12 weeks, it goes away. But I'm concerned that the bone spur is there and that it's just like now it's always going to be a problem and maybe I can never really lift the way that I did before. And they told me that it wasn't really worth trying to get surgery to remove the bone spur because it was underneath of the tendon. But the thing that's really weird to me, like right now, it doesn't hurt at all. Me just sitting here doesn't hurt at all. I won't notice it hurts at all unless I do this. I can only do 2 kilos like this. But it's swelling up a ton for some reason. And it's been like this pretty much all week, actually. So I don't know if that's going to go away or what. Probably I should see a doctor about it now that it's like swelling and not going away. If it stays swollen for another week or two, then I'll probably go in and have it looked at. But last time I had it looked at, they were kind of like, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. So I was like, don't worry about it. Maybe now I go back and they're like, maybe we should cut this off. It'll be a recovery, but it'll be a shorter recovery than what you're dealing with right now. Imagine. Well, we did have a little bit of a rise in pop after the Michigan sentiment, but we've kind of come back to 03 half-ish area, and now we're just going sideways. So it really looks like the Treasury is done for the day. The S&P 500 continues to rally, though, and it looks like that they are recovering the movement from yesterday. So one of the things that I was thinking was, like, if it's just a rotation, I think that it might take some time for that rotation to go through, and so I should still see the RTY outperform and everything today. Well, the ES is recovering this decline. How is it performing relatively, though? RTY is outperforming ES by almost double. So I think we are still seeing rebalancing flows. But perhaps the selling part of that rebalancing is largely past, maybe. So maybe we'll see if they are able to make it as high as we were yesterday or not. Stubbornly subdued. University of Michigan sentiment slumps as home buying conditions hit record low. We never read this story about the producer price index prices. Is it worth reading right now? This is not what the Buzz wanted to see. It doesn't look like Zero Hedge has a whole lot of commentary on it, to be honest. So. Okay, sounds like grandma's here. There's more Project 2025 stuff, man. Democrats are really pushing that hard. They must be having success with it already, though, if they're pushing it as hard as they are. Obama and Pelosi huddled as Democrats look to steer Biden out of the 2024 race. Harrison Ford is going to be in a Marvel movie? What? Well, we still got about 15 minutes left, but I don't know. Market didn't really do a whole lot today, did they? Really got all loaded into yesterday. Joe Biden is the best campaign manager Trump has ever had. It was really weird to me when I was reading that argument yesterday that like the Biden campaign is going to be okay, that like the polls show his favorability increased and he polls better than any of these other people and he's taking cognitive tests and he's fine, sort of a thing. Like, it does make me think like maybe he really did just have a cold. And, you know, he always kind of made stupid little flubs. I don't know if that really means his head is going. I still think that he's too old to be commander-in-chief. But, like, is he a vegetable right now? No. How can his polling numbers improve after that? That seems totally wrong to me. Did you see the New York and New Jersey? I did. There was, like, turning New York into a battleground state, almost. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sitting here like there is no way that Joe Biden wins. Like, are they really that delusional? And yet their arguments were making sense to me. I was like, I didn't believe them. Right? Like something fishy about it. Yeah, you've been lying to me about everything else. What makes you... Why should I believe you that you're not lying about the poll numbers, right? Or misconstruing them in some way. There's some people that think the whole like Putin gaffe yesterday is like will end him. Maybe. They're still pretending like it's fine though. Okay, this is weird. Let me show you a weird Reddit thread I just came across here. What's destroying the middle class? The Simpsons own this home on a single salary from a husband who didn't go to college. This was considered normal in 1989 when the show began. Okay. So at first I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm outraged. Like it really is too difficult to own a home and the American dream is being kept out of a lot of people's hands. So let's not call it the American dream, but like having a home and a car for your family is like out of reach for a lot of people. That's wrong. Okay, but then some people point out Homer works a skilled job at a nuclear plant. In the third episode of season 5, he goes to Springfield University and passes an exam in nuclear physics to avoid losing his job. Oh, okay. Maybe it wasn't that normal. Maybe they're lying to us about, you know. And Grandpa Simpson sold his home and gave Homer the proceeds to buy this one. They could only afford the murder home or the home next door to the pork processing plant otherwise. In real life, the typical salary of a nuclear safety inspector in 2024 is between $90,000 and $120,000 and requires at least an associate's degree in college from one of the several specific STEM fields and a 6-month to 2-year mentorship in order to get the job. In 1989, the typical median home cost between around $120,000 and $140,000, and if he was making $60,000 a year, $120,000 mortgage isn't entirely unreasonable. A lot of people generalize the rule of getting a mortgage that's around twice what your annual salary is, which would be $120,000 if he was earning $60,000. So all the math kind of is that for real? Like, if you could only get a house that was double your annual salary, like nobody would be able to buy a home. That's crazy. I don't think that I fit that, right? Like I'd have to make. Well, I don't want to give numbers, but good grief. But it would be probably different because I already have a lot of equity in it, so maybe it's different. Anyways. So all of the math checks out, in my opinion. But in 2024, the average house costs $420,000, meaning you'd probably need a salary of around $210,000 a year to afford it, which is around double what nuclear safety inspectors make in 2024. Better hope Marge gets a good paying job, because if they wanted to afford their house payments, yes. Oh man, interesting comments there. That was like one of the few cases where the Reddit comments were actually good. And on that subreddit, because a lot of that subreddit is trash. Here's a picture of President Putin meeting Vice President Trump. Oh, that's funny. Oh, I find that so funny. That's like the obvious meme to play. Why did I not think of that? Oh man. Biden is the walking meme that keeps on giving. It's true, I was the best vice president that never was. Isn't Zelensky a comedian? He missed a perfect chance to say thank you, President Trump, as he took the podium after Biden. Oh, that would be so inappropriate and really surely end Biden. But that would have been effing hilarious. This is clear evidence that Vice President Trump is a President Putin sympathizer. Case closed. Oh, man. Live action dramatized TV should never go past 5 seasons. Well, maybe. North Korea executes 30 teens for watching South Korean TV show. Ouch. Olympics to have Saudi Arabia for Olympic esports games. What is with Saudi Arabia becoming the esports capital of the world? That's so bizarre. Now, here's an interesting question about Max Pats. Trading on futures trading, and it's already negative. Well, that's good, because I wasn't impressed with that. But it used to be super popular. Comments are pretty positive, but the post overall is negative, which is good, because I feel like these ones are spam. Like, if somebody asked a question about me in the futures trading subreddit, I would hope that it would get downvoted. I just don't think that you want threads about people, because that just opens the door for people to abuse it and use it to promote themselves. Okay. Grandma's trying to get them to wake up. Yes, yes. Well, at least opening the windows. Name something you remember watching on this, and it shows one of those old style TV carts with the VCR that you'd watch in school. Well, I tell you what I remember watching on this was the O.J. Simpson verdict. That was a weird one. I remember at the time as a kid being like, well, I know all about the trial and everybody's talking about it, but is it really important enough to watch in school? And then all of the kids started arguing about it, about how he was guilty and not guilty. And I'm like, holy crap, people are really into this. My Energy's not doing so hot today. Oh, it's 8:55. Well, guys, had fun. I know it's a Friday. Didn't take any trades. We could have taken some trades. I mean, there was some range today. But I'm glad that I sat on it. Next week, let's pull that up here. Next week. So next week is a little bit lighter. We do have Empire or core retail sales rather on Tuesday. That's pretty important. Some Fed speakers and so forth, but overall it's going to be a much quieter week, especially since oh, is it not that week? Maybe it's the week after that. I was like, isn't there a July meeting? It's on the last day of the month. Gotcha. 2 weeks. So, all right, but I will see you guys on Monday. In the meantime, stay excellenting.